So with regards extra strain on data protection, other than the potential lack of resources due to redeployment or illness, pressures with regards data protection are understood to predominantly revolve around the security of processing within the remote environment. The requirements under legislation are unchanged as to the level of technical organizational measures that are expected. But our office obviously acknowledges that many organizations are now adapting to new ways of working and are adjusting and exploring new measures so as to facilitate this remote working in a safe and secure environment. For some organizations, this maybe wasn't necessary previously, as remote working may not have been an option for them prior to the current crisis. In this regard, the main message would be for organizations to ensure that they maintain an adequate level of security and that they mitigate risks such as relating to loss of data or unlawful disclosure, amongst other potential risks. Each entity must obviously assess their own needs and the needs particular to the processing that they carry out. But things such as password protection, multi-factor authentication, ensuring secure storage, not only of online data, but of any hard copies that they may be using. This would be basically the best place to start. In this respect, it would probably be useful for organizations to have a look at our website, www.gra.gi, and within the data protection section, you'll find a tab on GDPR guidance. And amongst other guidance notes that we've issued that may also be of use, there's one in particular relating to security of processing, which at present would probably be of additional use to many organizations.
In what ways could data protection be inadvertently compromised?
So again, one of the main risks surrounding the compromising of personal data would revolve around the appropriateness of security measures or lack thereof. With regards unlawful disclosure, a good secure system would go quite a long way to prevent hackers from gaining unlawful access, for example. Importantly, however, although a compromise may be considered as the unlawful disclosure of data or unlawful dissemination, which obviously, yes, it would be, this a compromise actually extends beyond this. So, for example, loss of data or inaccuracy of data would also lead to personal data being compromised. So security measures need to ensure that risks of this sort are also mitigated against. With regards the sharing of data amongst work colleagues, for example, which may have increased now in the online environment, again, it's important to use secure and reputable platforms for exchange of personal data and only exchange such data where it's absolutely required.
Is there also a concern that increased reliance on online work, especially from those who might not be used to it, can make people more vulnerable to cybercrime?
Businesses are having to adapt to these unprecedented times, and obviously we do acknowledge that more and more people are now making use of online facilities. With regards to cybercrime, I think this is something that's always existed in the online environment, and it's not something new in the current climate. However, again, the message would be for organizations and even individuals to ensure they have appropriate security measures, not exchange data if it's not an absolute requirement, and just basically weigh out the risks against the measures that are being implemented. We don't expect all organizations to go out and purchase the latest technologies or incur unreasonable or disproportionate costs, but we do expect a reasonable approach and standard of security measures.
The GRA says if something feels excessive from the public's point of view, it probably is. Can you expand on this?
I think to an extent it's a matter of using common sense. I mean, in addition to this, obviously the principles of the GDPR include that processing should be adequate, relevant, and limited to what is necessary, obviously taking into account the purposes for which it's being processed. In addition, obviously, lawfulness, fairness, reasonableness are always principles that apply. And I think this is the main thing, that organizations should really be sticking to the principles which continue to apply, and obviously applying the provisions of the GDPR and the DPA in a reasonable and proportionate manner.
What are the key guidelines for businesses and individuals to remember in ensuring that you preserve data protection under the current circumstances?
I would say the top 3 guidelines would firstly be, as you may guess, to ensure appropriate security measures are in place in line with the processing being carried out. Secondly, I would say to ensure that only what is absolutely necessary is requested in terms of personal data, and nothing more than what is absolutely necessary. And thirdly, obviously, to ensure that the principles in the GDPR are upheld and the provisions of the law are also upheld. I think it's important to note at this point that the Information Commissioner acknowledges that these are unprecedented times, and that many organizations might be experiencing pressures with regards resources or redeployment or other similar pressures, and our office is doing our best to assist where possible. This, for example, could be in the form of an extension to a deadline where we consider necessary or applicable, or maybe giving even additional timeframes where appropriate. Having said this, obviously as a regulator, although we are attempting to assist organizations as far as possible, we also need to ensure that the information rights of individuals are upheld. And obviously this is our main priority. Again, in this respect, in terms of guidelines, our office published on the 13th of March a document with regards to data protection and coronavirus, and it's entitled What You Need to Know. And this also can be found on our website and provides some useful information on concerns that organizations or individuals may have, and the Information Commissioner's approach to such concerns in these times.